My focus has not been on dealing with Kamala Harris. It's not about you, Kamala.
Right.
It's about the people of Florida. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now.
So as you know, we've got Hurricane Milton now bearing down on the state of Florida. This is after Florida already got hit with Hurricane Helene. And by all objective measures, Governor Ron DeSantis has once again come through for the people of the Sunshine State. He's pretty darn good, and his record shows how good he is at responding to hurricanes. You remember Ian from 2 years ago, absolutely masterful. In fact, he responded and prepared so well for Helene 10 days ago that he's been spending most of his time over the last week trying to mobilize Florida resources to help the people in Western North Carolina, in Georgia, and in Virginia. That's how strong his response has been. So now he's getting ready for Milton to sweep across the state, west to east, from the Gulf to the Atlantic, starting in Tampa and basically right across that that corridor. What's it? It's the I-15 corridor, I think it is. And it's harrowing. It's scary. This thing's looking like a Cat 5, Cat 6, I think they're calling it. But I have to point out, and I regret to do this, but sadly, it's my job as a figure in the media, that apparently Ron DeSantis made a huge, huge mistake. In all of this, it seems like he's done a great job for the people of Florida, but boy, he's made a huge blunder, an unforgivable sin. He didn't pick up the phone when Kamala Harris called him. He didn't pick up the phone and let Kamala Harris cosplay as a president, pretending like she in some way is in the chain of command for disaster relief so that she could politicize this moment. Yeah, that's Ron DeSantis's big sin. NBC News is reporting a completely uncorroborated report that Ron DeSantis did not take Kamala Harris's phone call when she called him. And so, of course, Kamala Harris is making this into a pretty big deal.
Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Now, a couple of things about this that need to be broken down. First of all, how many times have we seen her walking from her car to the stairway to climb up the steps to what is referred to as Air Force Two? It's not really Air Force Two, but it's where one of the fleet of, I believe they're C-130s from Andrews Air Force Base that are painted sort of like a mini version of Air Force One. And she uses one of them. The Secretary of State, various cabinet secretaries are allowed to use this thing for official travel. All right. It's not really Air Force Two, but I think they just say it out of, shorthand. How many times have we seen her get out of her little Chevy Suburban and wave to the cameras and then salute, a very practiced salute, I have to say, the men standing at the bottom of the stairway, and then just march up the stairs to get to her very important, busy job as the vice president of the United States? We see it all the time. By the way, about that salute, she's not actually in the chain of command. Why is she returning a salute as if she's, you know what? Honestly, I don't know about this, but I know that there's people in the military who watch this show. Could you explain to me, is it normal for the vice president to return a salute? Commander-in-chief makes sense, but she's not in the chain of command in the military. I'd love to hear if she should be returning a salute. Anyway, we see it all the time. She just bypasses the reporter. She heads up, waves to the reporters, heads up the stairs. But today she makes a beeline to the reporters. Today, I'll stand under this roaring jet engine and answer your question. Today, I will respond to whatever inquiry you may have, but not the rest of you. Just this one person. You know what? I'm going to find this one person. I'm going to find her. I'm going to pinpoint her out, and I'm going to let her ask a question. And What do you know? The question has to do with Ron DeSantis not taking her phone call. And she's got a clearly prepared response so that she can make headlines throwing Ron DeSantis under the bus and saying that he's playing politics at a time of crisis where we should be putting the people first. Now, if you think that this is just, happenstance, if you think it's just dumb luck that this just sort of happened to occur when she ignores the reporters on a daily basis, then, well, okay, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm calling bullshit on this one. Big time. Before she left the Suburban, she was told by our comms people, hey, before you go over to Jill over there. She's going to ask you about DeSantis. We've already got her prepped. And here's what you should say. That's exactly what happened here. But furthermore, what the hell is this even all about? Ron DeSantis has been doing a fine job. Everything is fine in Florida. He's been doing a great job. And now he's sort of got his hands full preparing for Hurricane Milton coming his way. And he's supposed to drop everything and talk to her so she can cosplay as the president of the United States. What is she, like Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction? I will not be ignored. I mean, seriously, when DeSantis goes home, he should check the stovetop and see if there's, a little bunny foo-foo doing a jacuzzi bath in a saucepan. What the hell is she all about? Why is she acting like an obsessed girlfriend? He won't take my calls. Well, ma'am, he's kind of got his hands full right now. What with hurricanes sweeping through the state and wanting to make sure that he's doing right by his people. But don't you know who I am and what we've meant to each other? You can't just pick up the phone call just for 5 minutes. I will not be ignored. It's creepy. It's like obsessive girlfriend stuff. DeSantis is having none of it. Last night on Hannity, he went right after her.
An even bigger storm that's bearing down, as you pointed out, on a very populated area, potentially could do even more damage. And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this. No. And here's the thing. She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the president of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this, I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them.
All right. So this is great stuff. And he appeared on Fox and Friends this morning, too, to expand on it. And I want to get to that as well, because it's a real strong clip. But understand what DeSantis is doing here, because it's so important. Listen, if she's suddenly the de facto president because Biden's incapacitated, I don't know, maybe you should send out a memo to the governors to let them know that. And while you're at it, invoke the 25th Amendment and actually get rid of the guy who's sitting there. But until that time, she literally has no role in this process. Now, if Biden has deputized her in some way and say, you know what, you're going to be in charge of hurricane relief, and maybe he should make a statement. Maybe he should, stand in front of the cameras in the briefing room and say, from this point forward, Kamala Harris is handling all hurricane relief and emergency management response. But he hasn't. She has no official role in any way whatsoever in any of this. He is not obliged to take her call. And if anything, taking her call takes him away from what his real job is. So here we are on Fox and Friends this morning as this thing continues to expand. As Kamala Harris, the obsessed girlfriend, who is just laying there at night, staring up at the ceiling saying, why won't Ron take my phone calls? Doesn't he know who I am? It just reaches this level that's incredibly intense and uncomfortable. I understand Doug Emhoff is not the most attentive husband in the world. I mean, he's got his hands full as well, right? But still, can't they sort of play this out in private instead of making a federal issue out of it? I mean, literally a federal issue.
In the mirror, we've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight, round the clock, 24/7. We've been working, my office, our Division of Emergency Management, helping people prepare for Hurricane Helene, helping effectuate rescues of people after Hurricane Helene, helping people pick up the pieces of their lives after Helene, and then have to also turn around and prepare for major impacts and maybe even more impacts from Hurricane Milton, be able to have rescue personnel ready to help people, and then, of course, help with the power restoration, all these things to do. So that's been my sole focus. My focus has not been on dealing with Kamala Harris. I saw the news report. I didn't know she tried to contact me, but I'd also say it's not about you, Kamala.
Right.
It's about the people of Florida. My focus is exactly where it should be. And I can tell you this, I've worked on these hurricanes under both President Trump and President Biden. Neither of them ever tried to politicize it. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have zero time to entertain these political games. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to prepare and respond to what may be one of the most damaging storms in the history of the United States. So she says focusing on protecting your people is selfish. I think she ought to look in the mirror.
And right now, Governor, just to conclude, you have what you need from the federal government, as well as you feel like you have the resources in place. Is that correct?
Every request we've made, and I've been in contact with the president. I've been in contact with the FEMA director. You know, it's interesting. Harris is not even in the chain of command.
Yeah, what
she
is
has
she even
no
doing?
role in this. I mean, the idea that I should be like worrying about her when I'm focused on the task at hand is just, quite frankly, absurd. So yes, all of our requests have been answered. We have marshaled all state resources that are available to us. It's going to be a very robust response, but it's going to be a lot of damage, and we're bracing for that. I'd ask everyone to keep us in your prayers. We know we're going to get hit, but hopefully we can pray that this storm will weaken and do the least amount of damage possible.
All right. And needless to say, the people of Florida are in our prayers, and we should be focusing on that instead of the politics of this. We should be focusing on what the governor has done and is doing to protect the people of Florida, and then solemnly keep them in our prayers as they are about to get hit with just a monster of a storm. But no, Kamala Harris has to make this about herself and her own political narrative. And that's where I'm sorry. I know oftentimes when you watch this show, you think, well, Larry's always talking about the media. Well, yeah, we are, because I think our role here is to shine a light on how bad the corporate legacy propaganda media really is. It's why we have an audience now. It's why you come here, because you have rejected what they do. So you're this little reporter standing underneath a roaring jet engine as Kamala Harris is using you as a tool for her own propaganda. And she's trying to blame DeSantis for not taking her phone call. And so you're allowing yourself to be used that way. And I got to say, if you've got any ounce of dignity or self-respect or any sort of professionalism in the chosen job that you want, the career that you want as a political reporter, how about one follow-up? How about just one moment and say, excuse me, Madam Vice President, I hear you, and we're going to make sure that your soundbite gets out there. But could I ask a follow-up question, please? Why exactly does the governor need to take your call? What exactly is that phone call supposed to accomplish? What is it that you're bringing to the table here that he needs to take? How exactly are the people of Florida being neglected because the governor is not taking a phone call from you, the vice president, who literally has no role in this entire emergency storm relief process? Can you explain why your call is that important? What kind of response do you think Kamala Harris would give to that? But of course, that question's never asked. Ron DeSantis has to go on these cable news channels and be on the defensive and explain why he's not taking the phone call. And of course, his answer is, I didn't even know she called. I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of busy. And I haven't told my office, listen, if the vice president calls, make sure you alert me immediately, right? Well, would he take Donald Trump's call? The answer is Donald Trump wouldn't call in the middle of this if he were vice president, or as he is right now, a private citizen running for president. Because Donald Trump respects the governor's job and he's letting him do his job. Why isn't the question put on Kamala Harris? Why are you injecting yourself into this? Why are you putting yourself in the middle of it? But now we've got this he said, she said thing. She says she calls and he's not taking her calls. And so now she's going to boil a bunny on the stovetop because she will not be ignored. Can't you see her like sitting there in her bedroom, just flicking the light on and off in her dementia? Ron DeSantis is ignoring me, damn it. She kind of has the Glenn Close hair thing going too. A little creepy. So she says he's not taking her calls. And he says, I didn't even know you called. And I'm a little busy. And so now we've got this back and forth and the bickering. And I hate it when mom and dad fight. There's good news, though. There is one person who can rectify this entire thing. There is one person on the planet who can try to cut through this argument and explain to us exactly what's going on and who's right and who's wrong. And ironically, that one person is the president of the United States, Joe Biden. And you're never going to believe this, but last night at 9:30 in the evening when this entire thing was blowing up, maybe it was by accident, maybe the timing was weird, maybe Joe Biden is trolling Kamala Harris and completely trying to undermine her political aspirations because he's very bitter about how everything went down. But Joe Biden, in fact, did send out the word about this. Take a look. With this very serious photograph of him sitting at the head of a table, getting briefed by, I believe, the director of FEMA in the middle of response. Look, his jacket's off. He's in his shirt sleeves. He's hunkering down. She's taking notes as he issues commands because he's in charge. He's the president. And he tweeted this. Tonight, I spoke with Florida Governor DeSantis and Tampa Mayor Castor for firsthand reports on Hurricane Helene recovery and preparations for Hurricane Milton. My administration is ready to support both leaders and the people of Florida with any further resources they may need. That sound you hear are the bus's wheels rolling over the writhing corpse of Kamala Harris's political aspirations, as Joe Biden injects himself in the middle of this thing and says, what the hell are you talking about, Kamala? I'm the president. I got this. I'm talking to DeSantis all the time. And by the way, if that weren't enough, earlier this morning, just about an hour ago, here's Biden doubling down. Not just explaining that he's contacting DeSantis, that he's taking DeSantis is taking his phone calls, but he went even further.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing. And they're doing an incredible job. But we got a lot more to do.
Thank you to Newsbusters, as always, for the clip. So you see what just happened there. You see, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I told you Biden and Harris, they don't like each other, okay? Biden is bitter. Biden thinks he should still be running. Biden, in his heart of hearts, thinks he's the only guy who can beat Donald Trump. And Jill is pissed too. Jill's never liked Kamala. This is going to get so ugly. Oh my God, the Joe Biden victory tour after the inauguration next year, when Donald Trump is sworn in, when he does his tour with his new book that is titled, I Woulda Won. I Was Robbed. Oh, God, it's going to be glorious. The books that will be written about what's going on behind the scenes right now, if you're a political junkie, are going to be delicious, just absolutely glorious. You see what Joe Biden just did. The narrative that Kamala Harris tried to inject into hurricane relief, The political narrative that she tried to inject yesterday is that Ron DeSantis is an unfeeling, uncaring fool who is putting his own political aspirations and his political alliance with Orange Hitler, Donald Trump, ahead of the people of Florida. He's playing politics with the storm, and he should be putting the people first. That's what she said. I showed you her clip. I showed you exactly what she said. DeSantis says, who is she? She's not even involved here. I've been dealing with the president. Everything's great. FEMA's doing great. I'm getting the money I want from FEMA. I'm getting the support I need. Everything's fine. Stay out of this. And Joe Biden jumps in and says, I've been talking to the governor. He's got everything he needs. He's doing a really good job. And I even gave him my personal phone number so he can contact me anytime he needs. Because why in the hell should he ever have to talk to Kamala Harris? Now, you may think this is just Joe Biden being a doddering fool and not following the day's political events. You may think that he's just trying to be attentive to the people and responding in a hurricane and not getting his hands dirty in petty partisan politics. And you may think that he's not acting like an angry, vindictive old bastard by purposely going out of his way to undermine Kamala Harris. You may think all of those things. But especially on that last point about being an angry, vindictive, petty little bastard, if that's what you think, if you think that Joe Biden is just being pure and fine and not being angry and petty and vindictive, you have not been following Joe Biden's political